to Brewing Success, where growth is the mission, change is the reward, and progress is the goal. I am your host, Andrea Gebhardt. I'm a former educator turned passionate entrepreneur whose desire to create impact has never wavered. I've spent the last decade teaching, mentoring, and coaching people on how to create success in their lives and businesses with proven strategies and systems that not only bring about change, but big results. When it comes down to it, teaching is my specialty, leadership is my jam, and inspiring you to live a bigger, fuller life is what I'm all about. This podcast will give you the knowledge and tools you need to brew success in almost any area of your life. You're going to walk away each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to step outside your comfort zone and into the next level of who you're meant to be. Now let's get into today's episode. One of the most valuable things I have learned from my mentor, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to share with you guys today, is that good leaders ask great questions. They ask great questions of themselves, they ask great questions of others, and they certainly ask great questions when they're in certain situations. Asking questions is so important because that is how new information is obtained. It's the only way that new ideas can get shared, and it's the best way for new perspectives to be delivered. And contrary to popular belief, asking questions doesn't make you a weak leader. Actually, it strengthens your ability to lead. Asking questions ensures that your leadership stays relevant. And one of the most important jobs of a leader is to make sure that your leadership stays relevant. And we do that by way of remaining in learning mode, by adopting a growth mindset, by recognizing that just because we're in a position of leadership doesn't mean that we've arrived or made it anywhere. It's so incredibly important that we keep our leadership relevant by reading the books, listening to the podcasts, attending the conferences, strengthening our skills and our strength zone, learning new skills. That's how we keep our leadership relevant, because if you aren't learning as a leader, then you're not leading to the best of your leadership ability. And so we're talking about this here, well, because one, this is the letter that we're on. We're on Q in the series of the ABCs of leadership. But more importantly, it's because regardless of where you are on your journey, you need to learn this. Something really interesting happens when we transition into leadership. Before we become leaders, and sometimes before we're identified as leaders, we're always asking questions. Always. We're always looking for new information, trying to figure things out. In fact, when I was a teacher, I could always spot a soon-to-be leader by who was asking the most questions in class. And I'm pretty sure that it's safe to say that you probably know that one person from high school or from college who always raised their hand at the last minute or always disrupted the lesson to ask another question that inevitably delayed instruction or sometimes even dismissal. And it's probably pretty accurate to say that those same people are leading something somewhere in this world. And if you're listening to this and we went to high school or college together, you're probably laughing out loud so hard right now because you're sitting here thinking to yourself, that was totally you, AG. And yes, it was definitely me all the way. So before we're identified as leaders or are serving in positions of leadership, we're always asking questions. We're always learning. We're always seeking information relevant to the direction that we're going. And then when we come into leadership, something weird happens. We begin to ask less and less questions, and we spend more time answering questions, which is exactly why we're here right now, because I need you to know that good leaders ask great questions. John Maxwell didn't write a book called Good Leaders Answer All the Questions. He wrote a book called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, because asking great questions matters. Why? Because the more you ask as a leader, the more you learn. The more you learn as a leader, the better you become. The better you become as a leader, the more influence you have. The more influence you have as a leader, the greater your impact. And the greater your impact as a leader, the stronger your legacy. All of this comes from asking great questions. I'll never forget being at an intimate event, and my mentor, John Maxwell, talked about how he used to arrange these learning lunches. He would sit down with influential people whom he admired and respected, and people he wanted to spend time with and learn more about. He would buy them lunch and just sit there and ask them questions. He wouldn't eat. He would just ask questions and write feverishly. He operated on the simple notion that if he had the opportunity to be around people who he wanted to be like or learn from, he wasn't going to take that lightly. He was going to soak up every ounce of knowledge because he too knows and understands that the value of someone else's experience, insight, and perspective is priceless. Good leaders always do more listening than speaking, and good leaders always do more asking than telling. I totally stole this whole idea, by the way. And because honestly, if this is how John Maxwell has become great and incredible in leadership and thought leadership, I am going to take note. I am going to follow suit. And now when I have the chance to be in the same room or at the same table or on the same Zoom as people who I strive to learn from, with people whose success I desire to have or skill set I am looking to develop, I am all up in there asking great questions with the intention to learn something new and to grow myself. I love to bank the value of every story shared, every lesson learned, every struggle that was overcome, every triumph that was had, every personal revelation that somebody had. I bank the value of all of those because they enable me to keep an arsenal of really good information that's going to serve others and myself on that road to success. So when you stop and start to think about all of this, are you asking great questions? Are you creating and leveraging opportunities to learn from others? If you're not sure where you truly are when it comes to this, or even if you're over here realizing this is a totally new concept to you, the best news is that you can only go up from here. Like we've talked about several times throughout this series, when you know better, you have a responsibility to do better. When awareness is created, there's an incredible potential for intentional action that is activated. So let's get intentional about asking great questions as leaders every chance we get. And before I start to share with you how questions can actually drive your success as a leader, I want to first address the entire point of today's episode. And it's this: good leaders ask great questions, not good questions, not basic questions, and definitely not just because I'm here and probably should ask something questions, but great questions. How do you know a question is a great question? Great questions are made up or created or thought of or come from a place of intent and desire to learn something new, to figure something out, to identify challenges, to identify solutions, to identify weak spots. Great questions are 100% calculated. Great questions usually require the person on the other end to pause, take a moment, and then respond. And that happens because the question was great. It required thought. It required pause. It required a response, not an automatically generated, I already have the answer to this because I've been asked it 500,000 times, and this is the basic answers to the basic question that you're asking. No, there's a pause there. There's reflection there. Great questions require thought and pondering on behalf of the other person. Great questions usually result in the person asking them to really lean in, because there's something they want to know. There's information they're trying to acquire. If a great question is asked, then real learning happens and real value is always added. When you think about asking great questions, here's what I want you to remember. Great questions are asked for big reasons. Here are a few of the ways you can categorize this thought when it comes to leadership. So great questions are asked to learn from someone further along in the success journey than you are. Great questions are asked to find out about where people are. These are the kinds of questions you ask to learn more about the people that you lead, because you have to know where they are before you can lead them where they want to go. Great questions are also asked to identify potential problems, blind spots, and weaknesses in an organization or team. Getting in with your people and asking how things really are, how they feel, what they would change if they were in charge. These questions are how organizations evolve. Oftentimes as leaders, we wait for the questions to come from the team, and then we stand there and we answer them. When in reality, great leadership is going to the team and asking the questions and allowing the team to reveal the answers. Thinking together as a team leads to solution-based conversations, and it also, and this is my favorite, it also inspires innovation. Asking great questions of your team members communicates that asking questions is important, that seeking deeper information matters, and that in leadership, sticking to the surface is only superficial. We got to go deep if we want to create deep growth. You don't have to be a know-it-all to grow it all. You just need to be really good at asking great questions. Leaders who ask great questions will experience the greatest amount of success and will develop organizations and cultures that will carry those benefits into the future generations of the team. And that's exactly what we want to have happen. Good leaders ask great questions. So I want you to think about the next time you're going to have the opportunity to be around someone whom you admire and respect. Don't just show up to that environment. Don't just sit at that table. Don't just log into that webinar. Come prepared with the questions, the great questions you would want to ask to get the information you need to grow yourself, to grow your team, to evolve your leadership. The next time you have an opportunity to be in conversation with somebody on your team or a group of leaders in your organization, come prepared to that, to ask the questions, the great questions that are going to spark innovation, that are going to generate solutions, that's going to provide conversation, that's going to evolve the team and the organization, because the goal of every sit down should be to ask the great questions that are going to result in great change, so that the people who came to that time, that came to that meeting, that came to that gathering, they leave better than they were because of the great questions that they were asked, that the team evolves immediately after that session is over, and that you come prepared to look at a situation, to look at, something that you're going through and ask the great questions. How could we solve this? What are some better ways that we could execute ABC? What about our implementation strategy needs to be evaluated? It's those great questions that lead to great results, that result in great leadership, that create and produce great teams, who then create big impact and therefore legacy. You guys, thank you so much for being here today, for showing up for your growth, and for committing to working toward becoming the best version of yourself. I hope that you now understand that there's actual power behind the questions that we can ask. And the greater the questions that we ask, the greater progress that we can make. If you could do me a huge favor, if this episode was impactful to you, I want you to share it. I want you to get it out there. What if the leaders, the current leaders, the developing leaders, the brand new leaders knew this information going forward? How much more of an impact we as a collective force could absolutely make. Thank you so much for being a part of the Brewing Success community, guys, where growth is the mission, change is the reward, and progress is always the goal.